All right. Good morning. Welcome in. Welcome in to the Chiefs pregame live chat. Chiefs versus Broncos today, the third divisional game of the season. It is the first time the Chiefs and Broncos will face off. Second time will be in the final week of the regular season, but that is ways away. That won't be until January, a whole nother month. But in the meantime, let's talk. Let's talk some Chiefs Broncos. This is going to be an interesting game today. I'll wait for some people to come in here before I give my my final thoughts on this game. Some of the important parts to go over today. I was listening to Trey Wingo. He put out his one of his pregame video clips where he's breaking down some games, and he went over Chiefs Broncos, and he talked about how the Broncos are moving in the right direction, and he's absolutely right. The Broncos are a much better football team than I think a lot of people certainly anticipated, me included. I remember Chris Harris. I mentioned this earlier in the week. Chris Harris mentioned that the Broncos could be in a 3 to 5 year rebuild. Well, they seem to be rebuilding just fine. A lot of people weren't sure if Bo Nix was going to be a quarterback that would bode well for them. People felt like the Broncos settled for Bo Nix because no one else was available, and they did not want the team right behind them in the draft, the Raiders, to get Bo Nix. So they felt the need to snag him rather than let him go to a division rival. I don't think the Raiders are bad, but they're doing well with Brock Bowers, and they'll certainly get their quarterback probably next year in the draft. But in the meantime, when you look at the Broncos, the offense not necessarily playing its best football, kind of up and down in certain areas. Second and 27th in passing. But I do think that that's not a fair representation of how this offense looks. Bo Nix has been doing some good things, still needs to improve in some areas, which is normal for a rookie quarterback. But I think in general, as good of a season I think Bo Nix is having, and again, yes, still room to grow, and that's normal for any rookie. I think he's going to have some trouble in this game. This is going to be, part of being a rookie and going through that rookie learning curve. I think he'll have some good moments tonight, or today rather, and I think he'll have some bad moments against the Chiefs defense. And I think the Chiefs, again, that pass rush, I know with my 3 keys, if you guys watched that every morning on game day, every single reel I do, it just feels like I mentioned the Chiefs pass rush has got to have a good game. And I think at the end of the day, you need that even more so in games when you go up against an inexperienced quarterback. And it's also very important when you're going up against an elite quarterback or one of the top tier quarterbacks in the NFL. So, and the reason I think it's so pertinent today is because I do like Denver's defense. Denver does have a good defense. I will say, I think overall on both sides of the football, but especially the defense, this is the best unit the Chiefs will face all season from a Chiefs offensive standpoint. They're top 10 in total defense against the pass, against the run, points per game allowed, and in red zone defense. So this is by far going to be the best defense and the healthiest defense the Chiefs will face all year long. Now, the Chiefs offense, they're definitely making strides themselves. Since the bye week, they have improved on third down. They went from 9th in the NFL in that category. Now they're the best third down offense in the league. Their red zone offense has improved drastically. They were 4th worst going into the bye week, and now they're 12th in that category. They have the best red zone offense in the last 3 weeks in the NFL. And I think that is the most important thing for this Chiefs offense, is to continue improving on that, building off that, and going to do so in this home game against a division rival in the Denver Broncos, who are in the playoff hunt right now. When you look at what the Chiefs have offensively, obviously DeAndre Hopkins, his presence alone has made a difference. That first game against the Raiders, he only caught 2 passes and was targeted one more time. Mahomes just, overthrew him on that pass there. But again, more practice reps, more games, more experience together. That'll translate to better opportunities for the two of them. And you saw it last week when DeAndre Hopkins had a hell of a game in his debut as a Chief inside Arrowhead Stadium. So I just feel like that connection between Mahomes and Hopkins is only going to get better. And when you watch Monday Night Football against the Bucs, they look like they've been playing together for a very long time. So that was a lot of fun to watch, that connection. And look, we all know ever since the Chiefs traded Tyreek Hill, they never had that number one standout wide receiver. I mean, you thought Rashee Rice was going to be that guy this year. Unfortunately, got injured. Hollywood Brown, we only saw him for one snap. That was in the preseason. Xavier Worthy, his progression is still taking some time. But when you look at DeAndre Hopkins, in a very short amount of time, he's turned into a key player for this team. And not that no one thought he was capable of it, but regardless how great you are as a wide receiver, going from one system to another mid-season can provide some challenges. And DeAndre Hopkins, I mean, it almost looks like he was part of the team during training camp. Speaking of training camp, I mean, look at who scored touchdowns for the Chiefs last game. Kareem Hunt had one touchdown. DeAndre Hopkins had two. Samaje Perine had a touchdown as well. What did all three of those guys have in common? None of them were with the Chiefs in training camp. None of them. So the fact that the Chiefs are finding ways to overcome all of these injuries rather than feeling sorry for themselves just shows you how disciplined, how focused this team is in trying to not let all of that deter their season right now. That's what I really like about this football team and how they've been able to manage all of that and stay unbeaten right now at the halfway point of the season. One more win, not that this is the standard or the goal with the Chiefs anymore, but one more win and you will have 9 wins on the season. What does that mean? That means you will have had a winning season every single year under Andy Reid. That's pretty impressive. I mean, that's very, very difficult to do. I think the only other coach who's been able to do that in a long period of time, Mike Tomlin. And Mike Tomlin's done it with a lot of different quarterbacks too recently. So, and obviously this year, probably the most impressive for the Chiefs to be able to do that. But that just shows you how much of a culture change the Chiefs have had since Andy Reid came in here. The only difference was you just didn't have that quarterback. And excuse me, ever since you got Patrick Mahomes, they're playing much better football. Excuse me. Joking, like Bengals on Thursday night. But I'm happy with what the Chiefs are doing right now. I do think, again, this is going to be the biggest challenge they will have faced from an offensive standpoint, going up against a very good and healthy defense. I know Pat Surtain was banged up at one point this year, but he's back and playing. Patrick Mahomes said he could be one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL right now. Him and McDuffie certainly up there in the conversation, but when you look at the edge rushers with Benito, Cooper, and then their defensive ends in that 3-4 scheme, Zach Allen and John Myers, that's a group that the Chiefs definitely need to worry about. And I know I say this a lot. Put a damn tight end out there. Put a running back out there to help with the pass blocking. I know that takes away one potential pass catcher, but you kind of need that in a situation. And listen, don't be afraid to fake it out. Travis Kelce. Excuse me. Travis Kelce had a moment last on Monday's game where he was blocking for a bit, then does that rollout where the defender did not expect it. He just thought Kelce was going into poor blocking, but when he was actually going out in the flat for a catch, and that translated into a bit. And I think that's when they scored the touchdown on the next play too to win the game. So things like that. And Kelce's, people make such a big deal about Kelce, his inability to block, which is not true at all. You're certainly seeing it this year. This is where Kelce has excelled with his blocking the most of any season. Yeah, I don't understand why the Chiefs are not doing that either. By the way, I don't know what's going on. It says Facebook user. Again, we had this on the Red Friday live chat. I'm not really sure what's going on. I was hoping it would have been fixed and adjusted by now, but no, not the case at all. So, yeah, I don't know who's talking. I don't know who's talking unless I pull up the chat. But I have the game inside. I was about to put it on the screen, but I don't want Roger to hit me with copyright there. But I think that defensive front right there. Here's my thing about pass rushers. I think pass rushers really, and I'm not breaking any news saying this to you guys, but it's still worth noting that pass rushers can be major difference makers in football games. If you have a strong pass rush, I think it can make the most average group of defensive backs be above average. And an above average group can be good, and a good group can be great. And I mean, how do you beat elite quarterbacks? You do it with a strong pass rush. I mean, they don't have anyone of, Nick Bosa or Max Crosby type of pass rushers, but those are two very solid pass rushers right there, and they've got two really good defensive ends that can help occupy the offensive tackles, and that's what 3-4 DEs are supposed to do in that scheme right there. If Mahomes only has 2 seconds to throw it, doesn't give the wide receivers time to run deep. Yeah, that's true. That's true. That's why I keep emphasizing this, and the Chiefs are not doing it. That's my problem. Even last year, I was calling for this. Because, I think the Chiefs are looking at left tackle right now, and that needs to be better. Not that you can do much about it right now. You kind of have to go with what you have. Listen, I know what a lot of people will say. The Chiefs, the last 2 seasons, which, not only were you without Tyreek Hill, you were also without 2 good offensive tackles. Keep in mind, I think that was Kansas City's second season without Eric Fisher and Mitchell Schwartz. But what have the Chiefs done the past 2 years with 2 bad offensive tackles, 4 different offensive tackles? You had Orlando Brown and Andrew Wiley one year, and last year you had, for the most part, Donovan Smith and Jawan Taylor. The Chiefs have still won Super Bowls with those guys right there protecting Patrick Mahomes on the edge. So if you can do that, then you certainly can do it again, but it's not ideal. Look, last year the Chiefs won the Super Bowl with the most penalized offensive player in the league, the most penalized defensive player in the league, and led the league in drops. Well, you don't prefer to have that 2 years in a row. Not saying that's the case right now. It's certainly not. I think the Chiefs have improved in all 3 of those areas for sure. But you gotta improve some of those things, especially when you have a franchise quarterback. I think offensive tackle is the most important position. Listen, as much as I'm thrilled Hopkins is here, and I do think that's a good move. If you can't find an offensive tackle, great. Go get a guy like Hopkins, which they did. But part of me would rather see 2 standout offensive tackles instead. Because I think if you have a stout offensive line, which the Chiefs would if they had 2 great offensive tackles, Mahomes could throw to anybody. I think part of the misconnection on some throws this year does have to do with that offensive tackle play. I truly do believe that. Now, Mahomes under pressure, still one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL. You just prefer he has those extra couple seconds, and that would certainly help with the offensive tackles. I know Taylor did look better against Max Crosby. Taylor's, looked better the last couple of games, but again, I don't think the Chiefs have faced any type of threat out there from a defensive standpoint. This is the best defense the Chiefs will have faced all year, and the healthiest too. Yeah, Daniel, I do think it's going to be cool. I can see who the YouTube. Hold on, let me take a screenshot because I gotta send this over to StreamYard because they'll be like, "What are you talking about?" And then I have to show them the receipts. Anyway, can you see this being a close game? Yes. So my score prediction, I would love to know your score prediction. I am going 24-20 Kansas City. We know the Chiefs never cover the spread, and that's such a huge deal to a lot of people because people use that to say that the Lions are a better football team than the Chiefs. So, okay, all right. Last I checked, the Chiefs have won 14 in a row, but what do I know? You're the best. Love following your page. Thank you. I appreciate it. Definitely. The whole revenge thing about how Mahomes, his last game against the Broncos, he lost. He was 11-0 previously. Is anyone talking about how this needs to be a revenge game? Is anyone talking about that? I don't think anyone's talking about that. The fact that the Chiefs lost to the Broncos and that this is a revenge game. I think the Raiders loss, that was a bigger deal, mainly because they did all that talking with the recipe and the calling Mahomes a bitch and all those things. It's like, okay. And that was the last loss too. So remember the line Trent Green had, the line that gave him time to throw? Yeah, it's a great point. It's very hard to replicate that kind of offensive line, but I will argue that interior offensive line Trent had with Will Shields, Brian Waters, and Casey Wakeman, which in my opinion, Casey Wakeman is the most underrated Chief of all time. But I think Mahomes has a Waters, Shields, Wakeman type of offensive line, does he not? With Tooney, Smith, and Humphrey? I certainly think that's the type of offensive line he has, for sure. But yeah, part of the reason you make a good point, though. Part of the reason Trent Green was so great during his time in Kansas City was because he had those pass blockers. And when Willie Rofe retired and then Shields retired the year after, you noticed a big difference. The running game was not the same. The quarterbacks did not have the time they needed, and you just did not see the Chiefs make a strong effort to try to improve in those areas for sure. Yeah, I'd love to know your guys' predictions. I am going 24-20. You think Butker's going to have a game winner? Here's what I think with Butker. I mean, he's a great kicker, no question about it. But even the best kickers, they'll make a mistake from time to time. We've seen it. We saw Butker miss a PAT this year. He's had a couple of long-range misses, which not a concern at all. I mean, if you miss time to time from long range, okay. That doesn't mean you're a bad kicker. That just, kicking from long range is not easy. Kicking field goals is never easy, especially from long range. But if there was a game where, you cannot afford any error with the field goal operations unit, the snapping, the holding, and the kicking, this is the one. Because I do think it's going to be a game where it would not surprise me one bit if you see a 7-3, 10-10, 10-7, 13-10, that type of halftime score. Do not be surprised if that's the type of score. I would be surprised if there was anything above a 13-10 score at halftime. And then in the second half, I'm expecting, a 24-20 victory for the Chiefs. So the point in bringing all of that up is I just feel like this is the game where every score is going to be a crucial one here. Every turnover, every third down stop is going to be pertinent here. Because whoever has the ball, it's going to be one of those whoever has the ball last is going to win type of games. I think that's the type of football game this is going to be. All right. 27-24, 27-21, 20-17, 23. Yeah, a lot of you guys seem to agree with me. 24-13. Spags will eat Knicks alive. Yeah, I think so too. I think we're all in agreement. It's going to be that kind of football game where it's going to be a one-score game. Shocker. That's just the way Chiefs football goes. Again, going back to what I said at the beginning of the live stream about Trey Wingo and his pregame clip where he said the Chiefs were going to – he never said the Chiefs were going to blow out the Broncos, but he did say that the Chiefs should have a good time, should have fun against the Broncos. I don't know what that means. Kind of insinuating that they're going to blow them out, right? Well, I mean, what else would that mean? But I think at the end of the day, I don't think it's going to be a blowout. I'll give it a 10% chance that the Chiefs could blow out the Broncos. The only way they do that is if they really get to Bo Nix and he starts throwing a bunch of ill-advised passes that turn into forced turnovers. If the Chiefs can force 3 turnovers out of Nix in this one, yeah, I can see this being a blowout. That's the only way. The Chiefs don't get a lot of sacks and they don't get a lot of turnovers. But I think the Chiefs will take care of business at the end of the day. Bo Nix has 1753 passing yards, which is 21st in the league. Yeah, but I mean, listen, he's a rookie. What do you think the Chiefs defense has to do to keep messing with him? Just get to him. Just pressure him. That's all you got to do. Just pressure him. You can do that. Okay, we got a couple of people who think this is going to be a one-sided game now. Now we got those predictions coming in. Just pressure the guy. I said earlier, Jay, I don't know if you heard me say it. You got to pressure quarterbacks, no matter if they're elite or if they're inexperienced players. In this case, you have an inexperienced player who has not faced a defensive front like Kansas City. And surely, listen, Sean Payton's no dummy. In fact, he's the complete opposite. He's a fantastic head coach. He's been doing this a very long time. So he's definitely going to make sure Bo Nix is prepared for what's coming. Now, can they translate that into what they want the game plan to be on the field? That remains to be seen. Practicing and having that preparation in the game plan is one thing. Having that execution on the field is a completely different deal. So we'll see what the Chiefs do in this one. By the way, real quickly, so Roger Goodell did an interview this morning. He says that he wants 8 international games next season. So he wants Spain, Mexico, Brazil, Germany, England, and Ireland as potential locations for games in 2025. Obviously, England is probably going to have multiple games. Germany might have 2 games. Listen, you guys know my thoughts on this already. I'm not a fan of these international games. I like waking up at 8:30 Central Time, of course, to see we got football on. But when it's freaking Carolina and the Giants, not really. I mean, listen, Sunday morning football is cool, but I don't like taking home games away from our own teams. Like, do you see Manchester United? Are they bringing in big games to the United States, like Chiefs Dolphins last year in Germany? That's a big AFC matchup, which, you know, they ended up getting Chiefs Dolphins in Arrowhead eventually for the playoffs, but a lot of people decided to stay home because of the frigid temperatures there. But why do you want a premier AFC matchup like that outside of your own country? I don't know the details on this, and I don't know if it's out there how much money the Chiefs are making, not the Chiefs, the NFL is making from these games. Clark Hunt used to be one of the chairman for, used to be the chairman for the NFL International Committee. He's not part of the, I think he's part of it, just not the chair. But I don't know. I do know he loves these international games. And I'm just curious, like, what's the benefit from this? Okay, you're globalizing the sport, and you're globalizing Chiefs football, I guess, which is not difficult to do when you have Taylor Swift on your side anyway. But I guess, you know, if you can tack on a few more thousand fans, they're for it. But you're taking home games away from your own stadium. I remember when this was a thing in 2015 when the Chiefs were selected to play the Lions in London. And some people were kind of confused, like, wait a minute, we just renovated the stadium not too long ago and we're taking away a home game now? I don't know. I'm just not a fan of taking games outside of the US and having them elsewhere. I'm just not a fan of that. Just not. Those are my thoughts on that. All right, I'm going to get out of here, guys. Hey, come back at halftime. We will do a halftime live stream recapping the first half. And after the game, we will do the Chiefs Zone podcast live. We'll take your video calls. So make sure you guys click the link that I'll provide after the game. Make sure you guys turn on your video camera, your audio, and chat it up. Call into the Chiefs Zone podcast after the game, and we'll talk about the Chiefs hopefully improving to 9-0 and winning their 15th consecutive game. Boy, that would be nice to talk about. 15 wins in a row and a winning season every single year under Andy Reid. Okay, my name is Farzi Vasugi, and thank you for joining me for this pregame live chat. I'll talk to you all later.